Good morning from Nashville. Mark, are you drinking coffee?
I am drinking coffee. Yeah, I cut
You
out
haven't
energy
had a
drinks.
lot of you haven't had a lot of caffeine this week, have you?
No, I haven't, and I cut out energy drinks for Lent, so I haven't done an energy drink since whenever Lent started.
Oh my gosh, that's impressive. Well,
I know. I mean, the pinnacle of health.
I have my Harry Potter I solemnly swear I'm up to no good mug. That is probably my favorite mug and it really depicts who I am as a person.
So I'll be honest, I've only seen like two of the Harry Potter movies, and I've only read like one of the books, and I keep like watching it, and I have a goal to watch it all the way through one day, but I just haven't gotten there.
Mark, that's the most disappointing thing. You've insulted me twice this morning already, and it's only like 9:10, and that's the most offensive thing that you've said
I
today.
mean, I'm not against it. I just like I think every time I watch, I'm like, yeah, this is fine. But when they're serious, there's like seven of those movies now, right?
There's eight, but yeah.
Eight. So I feel like with stuff like that, like I like if I'm gonna do, I like to watch it all the way through, like watch it the whole day. But like eight's too many. You can't even do that in a day. Like
And they're
Lord of the
long
Rings is
movies.
yeah, Lord of the Rings is a good three. Like it's long, they're like 3 hour movies, but like you can do that in a day. I can't do. I mean, that's like a whole weekend of Harry Potter to get it done. So I don't know. Maybe one day if I'm ever like really sick and have like 3 days off, but otherwise, I don't think I'm gonna do it.
That's what y'all should do one day after you and Kara have babies and you're at home with the babies. You should just commit to Harry Potter.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. So it's the
I'm
baby
just
thing is not.
saying.
Yeah, yeah.
On maternity leave, that should be y'all's thing. Okay, speaking of things from our childhood that made us nostalgic, Mr. Potato Head is such a controversial thing right now. I'll have you know, I had like three Mr. Potato Heads, and so I'm not really sure what happened yesterday, but Hasbro went from we're dropping Mr. Potato Head and just calling it Potato Head to the branding is just going to say Potato Head, but there's still going to be a Mr. and Mrs. And part of me wonders if they started all of this, and Justin actually texted this like as a joke, but it made me start thinking, did they just do this to make people realize that Potato Heads, like, were their sales low and they just did this to make people think that Potato Head still existed and like we could talk about it? I don't know, but yesterday was a weird day for Mr. Potato Head. I'm sure he's very confused about his gender.
That's actually a really good point because I'm like I have not talked about Mr. Potato Head in 20 years. Since was there Mr. Potato Head in the Toy Story movies? I felt like there was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I
And he
think
would
that's
like
the last time
open
I've
his
ever.
little, he like opened his little back flap and changed his outfit. Like, yeah, that was a big thing.
It is probably a press thing. I feel like that's one of the things that they're like, well, maybe liberals will be so happy that they'll buy stuff, and it's like nobody's buying our stuff now anyways. It's not like conservatives being turned off by it's going to matter. So I don't know. I mean, it's just weird. Like I don't understand why because by them changing from Mr. Potato, they're like saying that being a man is like not okay. Like there's men and women, and apparently, like I guess this is like a non-gender. I just don't
Right.
understand it.
The nature of Mr. and Miss Potato Head, just like in general, is that it comes with all these accessories. So when I was a kid, I had one potato head and I had the Mr. Potato Head accessories and the Miss Potato Head accessories. So you can really make it whatever gender you want it to be because it's a plastic potato. Like, I don't
I
know
didn't
why we
realize there
did
was
this.
like a Mrs. or Miss Potato Head.
Yes, there's
So there was
always
no
been.
reason to do this. Like what? Like why not just have? I guess it's for like the non-gendered. Like if that's your marketing goal, you're gonna sell to 0.001% of the population, and they probably like Mr. Like that doesn't make any sense.
It's a hollow piece of plastic that looks like a potato. Like it's not gendered in any way other than the hair bow or the little purse that you can have. I had all the potato head accessories and it doesn't make any sense why you would do that.
I mean, it just doesn't. Yeah, because I'm like, oh, maybe it's just add a Mrs. Potato Head instead. But it sounds like they already had one. I just didn't know. I mean, I've never played with that because I play with cool toys. So I don't understand those losers who play with that. But I'm sure that's it just doesn't make any sense to me why they would do that. I'm guessing. I mean, the publicity point is probably the best thing I can think of, right?
Yeah, that's the only thing that, and because I love Hasbro toys. I loved playing with my potato head. I am just going to choose to believe that they didn't do this for political reasons and they did this as a marketing thing to get potato head back in the mainstream conversation. That's what I'm choosing to believe because I just enjoyed potato head so much that I don't want to believe that Hasbro was being political.
Also, what a stupid freaking toy! Like, what? Like, who's gonna put? It's a potato with like eyes on it. Like, why is that even a toy? Why did that ever sell well?
No, it's so much fun because you get to choose where all the accessories go. So it's got little holes in it that you can put the arms in and the legs and the
Why
eyes
not
and
make a person though? Why does it have to be a potato? And like, why couldn't it be like Mr. Apple? Why do they have to choose potato?
I don't know, Mark, but I love my potato head, so just lay off.
This seems like a weird, like, I can't believe this ever made money. The more we think about this, like, I know it's not popular now, but like, I don't understand why it was ever popular.
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about like every time we would go to the store, I would just beg for more potato head accessories. And I had so many. I mean, I think I had every accessory that they made until I was like 8 years old. Like I had so many potato head accessories.
Weird. Like,
Kind of
I
bizarre
just
to
didn't
think about
know.
now.
Do you remember Pogs? That's an unrelated thing, but I don't know if you remember
No,
this.
pogs, I feel like were more of a boy thing.
Okay.
At
What
least I
about those? What about those? I mean, we should have another segment about this, but I was like thinking about those, like Polly Pocket. That was a girl thing, right?
I had so many Polly Pockets. I had the Disney themed ones. I loved Polly
I
Pocket.
think my sister did too. Yeah, we should have a whole segment on that next week, like toys when we were kids.
Yes, we'll do that because I remember Polly Pocket because I've always been short and everyone called me when I was shorter than all of my classmates. People called me Polly Pocket because I was so much
Oh, because
shorter
you
than
look like a little play
yeah,
toy.
yeah.
Okay.
I looked like a
Very
little
cool.
doll, some may say.
I
But
don't
yeah,
think that's what anybody meant.
okay, watch your mouth. We'll talk about that next week for sure. I really don't want to steer away from this topic because it's fun. And our next topic, we should have rearranged this in my notes. I'm looking at it now and having regrets, but really had some foreign policy issues over the last week and especially last night. I was shocked when I was literally washing my face and I looked down at my phone and I got the Wall Street Journal alert that the Biden administration had chose to bomb Syria. And that to me was very shocking because, we've talked about this a few times, but for everything that President Trump did wrong, I really agreed with him on most everything foreign policy wise. And this
Yeah,
was
I think most people, like, I mean, I've not been, I've not had a problem criticizing the way he is and the way he acts at a lot of times, and even some of his specific policies. But like, foreign policy seemed to be the place that he really excelled, and people kept saying, I remember the biggest knock on him, like when he ran, is like, oh, is he this into a world war? It's like he did the opposite. He pulled us out of places, and like he pulled us out of Iraq. He did a lot of things, and he did that. And I think the best thing of this is that they went back to a tweet that Joe Biden did in 2017. I guess it was. And he said, let me be clear. Donald Trump does not have the authority to take us into a war with Iran without congressional approval. A president should never take this nation to war without the informed consent of the American people. So it seems like that's inconsistent with just unilaterally bombing a country, whether or not we think it's a good idea. I mean, I don't understand the specific. I'm sure he has a lot of information I don't have, so I'm not going to like criticize him for doing that. But it just shows the just complete inconsistency on the left again. And I haven't seen anybody critical of him. I remember the anti-war kind of Democrats from the George Bush era, and like they kind of stopped for a while when their people were in office. And I mean, the same thing I saw. I mean, how much press did Brett Kavanaugh get? I haven't seen much about the Andrew Cuomo stuff. Like all the, like, it's just another example. I feel like there's a double standard, and it's amazing seeing all my woke and like my people on Facebook that seem like, oh, like I just want somebody who's going to do the right thing. And like when this comes out, I haven't seen a peep from them. If this would have been Trump, every single person would have said, oh no, he's against another world war. What a crazy leader. But it's been silent with this whole thing.
absolutely. And I also think it just goes to show, and we give our opinions and our hot takes on things all the time, but it goes to show that you really don't know what you would do until you're put in that situation. And so for Biden to tweet then about he can't do this, he can't do that, being overly critical of President Trump at the time, and then now doing this and expecting kind of like, I would assume he expects a carte blanche, like I'm the president, I can do whatever I want. It just goes to show that you can't be super critical until you're put in the position and you don't know what you would do. Because I
What about the
promise
kids
you
in
in 20
cages?
what?
The kids in cages, like
I
he
know.
did, and he calls it an overflow facility. And like the press did hold Jen Psaki accountable for that, but it's like, I mean, this was like one of the reasons you ran for president, and you're doing the same exact thing, even if it's a temporary thing for a month. So it's insane.
You don't see AOC going and crying at the fence over what Biden is doing like she did.
We have to be honest though. AOC did. She was the only one who spoke out against Biden and said like, this is still wrong. So like, as much as we have issues with everything she believes in, like she's been one of the few consistent ones on this. I haven't seen anybody else criticize Biden on the left other than her.
Right. I'm just saying there hasn't been a big photo op. Like she's been critical, but it hasn't been like a big media production like it was with Trump. So that's fair. I just, you don't know what you would do unless you're put in the situation, and the inconsistency. I think we talk about it. We have it every week topic of inconsistency. It's like one thing that you can always count on us is to be consistent about calling out other people's inconsistency.
And I also want to say one more thing. They talk about Neera Tanden, and she's the one who's going to be, I guess, OMB. She's what she's going for. And I keep hearing, and they're right, but I keep hearing the Democrats saying, well, the Republicans have been so inconsistent. Now they care about mean tweets. Like they didn't care about that for 4 years. And they're right about that. They're absolutely right about that. But then on the other side, it's like the Democrats kept talking about how we want civility and all these things. And then they're nominating somebody like that. So every time we see one party being consistent and you hear the press talk about, I think John Oliver did a thing on it. It's like, yes, that probably is true. But then the other side shows just as much inconsistency because 4 years ago, or whatever, they were on the opposite side of the issue. So every issue we have, I think both parties have been basically inconsistent on.
I agree. I completely agree with you. This never happens until Mark and I start talking about inconsistency, and then we actually like 100% agree on things. Another thing that we 100% agree on is corporate welfare. There's a lot of examples of corporate welfare that happen in Tennessee. What corporate welfare basically means is the government picks winners and losers by giving certain businesses money to do things that private businesses should be paying for. For example, the Amazon facility in Nashville, when the government just gave them tax breaks and straight up cash to come here. That's a bad deal. That's giving a big business something that they would never give to a small business. One of the most glaring examples of corporate welfare that should literally never happen is sports stadiums. We've talked about this for so long. We went through round and round and round and round and round of it with the Nashville Soccer Stadium. And now there's another proposed sports stadium in Knoxville. And, to me, as someone who didn't really understand the corporate welfare argument until later in my 20s and didn't really know what was going on, now learning about sports stadiums and the poor return on investment that they give for taxpayers, my blood starts boiling. Even though I love sports, we texted Justin after one of our podcasts one day and said, hey, we're going to ditch politics on the podcast, and Mark and I are going to do a sports podcast where we drink beer and talk about sports. We love sports, but taxpayers paying for sports stadiums is one of the more unfair forms of corporate welfare because of so many reasons, but one being that it doesn't benefit all taxpayers, and it just makes my blood boil.
Yeah, I think and we're gonna be talking about the new Knoxville stadium. They want to move the Smokies to Knoxville, the new stadium. But one of the things that we've talked about is we have a philosophical objection to tax dollars going to private stadiums. I mean, it's just, we're against it. But even looking past that, that's why the sports stadium argument and the film subsidies one is the same thing. It doesn't matter what your philosophy is. It's so clear that there's such a terrible return on investment that even if you think the government should do this, you just say, well, this is a bad deal. This is not good. And if you look at study after study, they basically show no benefit at all to the community. And any of the extra money put in that is kind of a substitution effect where instead of going to dinner at a local restaurant, they're spending money at the stadium. Fine, but like that means that restaurant is losing out on stuff. So it's not new money being spent. And guess what? This is not a professional baseball team. People are not going to be coming from California, go, oh, I want to see the Smokies game. It's not a professional football team. It's going to be all local people already live there. It's not bringing new people into the community. And it's just an awful, awful deal. And I mean, we like a lot about what Randy Boyd stands for. I mean, he ran for governor. I mean, he's a good guy, but like this is his project. And I mean, the people who are doing this are millionaires and billionaires. I mean, they have so much money and they're asking for $65 million from Knoxville taxpayers. And I think that is absurd. And every time they say 65 million, that's what it starts at. And there's overruns, and I'm sure it'll be over 100 million by the end of it. It's a bad deal. We've kind of been on the ground and have talked to people in Knoxville, and it doesn't seem like they're for it. And if you're going to do one of these stadiums, which we of course disagree with, I mean, it should at least go to a referendum, because I feel like the people of Knoxville don't want to see it. They don't want to put their taxpayer money towards it. It's a terrible deal. And this is one of the worst things. As other places are kind of going away from taxpayer-funded stadiums, including California, we're kind of getting more into it. I mean, right? We talked about Chattanooga was talking about the Lookouts getting a new stadium. Knoxville's now, I mean, they're going to spend $65 million to put it. Meanwhile, they've had to cut all these other services and roads and things like that. They've had to cut services, and they want to spend $65 million on a sports stadium. It doesn't make any sense. I think that people need to pay attention to this what's happening in Knoxville right now. There is some opposition on the ground that comes from this weird bipartisan coalition, right? This is not just Republicans or conservatives. This is, I mean, a lot of liberals like, this is not how our money should be spent. We should be putting this at least into things like education. Of course, we'd like to cut taxes instead, but we'd rather go to education than to a sports stadium. I mean, there's a lot of places that this money could be spent, or it can go back to the people who need it the most. You can cut taxes for everybody. And I think that's what we prefer, this whole idea of people who don't watch baseball, who don't have the money to go to baseball games, paying for a baseball stadium. It's unfair, and it's honestly unethical. And it's something we need to really, I think, make people understand. I think the people in Knoxville do get it. I really do.
And you made an interesting point, and I want to circle back to this, and it's kind of off topic, but anytime you hear of the government saying, well, this project will create revenue, let me just say, like, governments don't create revenue. Governments use your tax money and redistribute it to a bunch of different places. So like when I was in Alabama years ago and they tried to do a lottery, they were saying a lottery would create revenue. Well, no, it doesn't. It just takes the money that you would be spending at the grocery store or at a restaurant or whatever and puts it in a lottery. So it's going to the same, it's all your tax money. It doesn't change the amount of money that's being spent by people, because we all have the same amount of discretionary income at the end of the month. So the government's not creating revenue. They're just choosing where they want your tax dollars to go and where they want to use them. They're just not creating new revenue. So I think that that's something that, especially our generation, the younger people that haven't been around as long, my friends will say, well, this is, how can you argue against this? It's going to create revenue. And we have just a fundamental misunderstanding or disagreement about the role of government and what they do. The government doesn't create revenue. Jobs create revenue. Businesses create revenue. The government just collects tax money and then chooses where to spend it. That's just not what they do.
One point about lottery, that is a little different though, because people are able to choose that they want to pay. And it is new money that wouldn't have gone there anyway. I mean, I think my biggest issue with the lottery is that the states allow lottery, which is fine, but then they won't allow legalized gambling. So they have a monopoly on their actual lottery. But lotteries are different because you're saying, I want to buy a ticket. Everyone in Knoxville has to pay for the stadium whether they want it or not.
Yeah. I'm just more talking about the whole argument of states creating revenue. That's just not, it is totally different, but states don't. I mean, governments don't create revenue. They can't.
Yeah. They're spending and especially when let's talk about stadiums, like they're spending your money to create this. Yes. And any money they get back, they'll say, oh, look at all the money we made. But it's like, well, we spent this much and we got less back. So that means you took more of our tax dollars for this. And that's what happens to stadiums. I mean, every single study, including it's done by Cato, which is a right-leaning organization, Brookings, which is kind of a center-left. Every single study shows that stadiums are terrible investments, and specifically minor league stadiums are even worse. So like, this is a bad investment. I think the people of Knoxville should really make their voices heard, because this is a terrible deal. All these stadium deals turn out that way. And it's just something that these people are rich. Randy Boyd owns this land. He spent a lot of money on this land. Build a stadium. I think a minor league baseball team would be great if you move it to Knoxville. You don't need our money for it though.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about all these corporate welfare deals in general. Is you Amazon had the money, Alliance of Bernstein had the money, all of these companies that we talk about, they've got the money. So
and we want them to come, right? We're not anti-business. We would love them to come. It's just, what is the point of it? Should we be giving tax dollars to very specific businesses with connections, or should we kind of allow all businesses to be able to thrive and pay lower taxes, as opposed to giving handouts to some and making especially small businesses have to kind of like do everything they can to fight and survive? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And I think during COVID specifically, trying to explain to a small business owner, said, you know what, because of your rules in Knoxville, I'm going to go to business. And like, oh, so you want me to fund $65 million to a minor league baseball stadium? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And I think that we need to think critically about this, especially at a time like this, that we should not be spending money on things like this, which the government clearly should not be doing. Minor league baseball stadiums to private millionaires is not one of the government's core roles.
No, I agree. But there are some good things that are coming to Tennessee after all of that bashing. We do have some good things that are coming to Tennessee that can have all of my money. Whataburger, Mark told me this morning, is coming to Nashville. And
to Hermitage,
I'm going to get so fat. They're going to get all my money because I love Whataburger. Honey butter chicken biscuit. Well, I was thinking the honey butter chicken biscuit. I can't talk. But just like a big burger with pickles and mustard. Oh, yeah. What's your order there?
So here's my thing. Is I think Whataburger is a little bit overrated when you compare it to In-N-Out though. Like I don't like, it's so much better than everything else we had there. But like, I feel like that's the argument. You have the Texas people say Whataburger and the California people say In-N-Out. I'm like, I like In-N-Out better, but Whataburger is still way better than anything else we have here. So I'm very excited about it coming. And they're going to do 5 locations. There's going to be one in Hermitage, and then they're going to do like Mount Juliet. There's not actually any in the center city, Nashville, but Mount Juliet, I think, like Dixon and a couple other areas. But no, Whataburger is a delicious meal. My favorite one is actually on the Vegas Strip. That's always my because it's open 24 hours. So it's like at 3 a.m. when you're done losing all your money and you're half drunk, you're like, well, let's go get a Whataburger. That sounds good. But it's a good and I like their fries. I like their fries better than In-N-Out. Their burgers are not quite as good, but I think they're juicier, which I like. They're very juicy, and they're really big, and they have good bacon. That's a hard thing for burgers. Wendy's does too. I'll give Wendy's credit. But like when you go to McDonald's or when you go to a Burger King, you're like, this bacon's garbage. Like did you take it out of the trash? I don't understand. I don't think it's real bacon. But no, Whataburger's great, and that's coming here. And I mean, Nashville's getting some cool things, and they're getting some new flights too.
Yes. Another thing that can have all my money is Southwest, because they're now flying to Destin, right?
Yep. And I know you're a big 38 person.
I'm a big 38 person, and Southwest is flying straight from Nashville to Destin. They can have all my money. My family goes to 38 twice a year, and I am thrilled. I can't wait.
I know. I think it's cool. And Bozeman, I'm actually more excited about, because here's the thing about I love
Bozeman's hard to get to.
I know Destin's a really cool place. I love going there. I mean, we had a great time. Me and Kira went for like 10 days earlier this year. But it's hard because it's only like a 6-hour drive, and I like to get to the airport like 2 hours early. So by the time it ends up doing, it's like, well, that was about the same time it would have taken me to drive, only because I'm a psychopath. I have to get there early. Right. But it's cool to have that option, right? I mean, if you're like, I want to go on a last minute trip, and if it's like $49, like that's cheaper than gas would be down there. Yeah.
It's also funny. So you're a 2 hours early person. I'm like going through security as they're calling for boarding for my flight. I hate that. So close every time, but I have pre-check, and I never check it back. I just walk straight through and just get on the flight, because I hate waiting in an airport, because this is why I hate it. I don't like the TSA announcements. It's like, if you see anything suspicious, report it, because then it makes me paranoid, and I don't want to hear that. So I just want to.
Well, the cool thing at the Nashville airport is that Phil Vassar says, "Hey, this is Phil Vassar, and you're at the Nashville airport." So that's a pretty cool announcement to hear. The 2 hours is an exaggeration. I usually get there about 2.5 to 3 early if I can, but I like the airport. I like eating there. I like hanging out there. I like to get a drink or two there. I'm like watching games. I just like the airports.
That's so funny. I hate public bathrooms. And so the least amount of time that I can spend in public is great.
Yeah, but girls have a harder time with public. You guys have to sit down in them. Like it's a lot easier for men in public bathrooms.
We just like go to the airport, and Mark's sitting there having a beer. And it's like, Mark, where you going? Nowhere. I'm just hanging out.
I know. I wish you could go to the airport and not have to get a ticket. Like, just, I don't feel like going to a bar now. I'll just go to the airport and get a drink and whatever.
You're so weird.
I think airports are cool. And it's also like, you're really excited usually because you're going on a trip. If it's a trip you're looking forward to, it's like, I don't know. It's like you think about what's going to happen and you just get excited.
I always get sweaty in the airport. It's hot because you're like wearing your layers that you don't want to shove in your bag. And so you got like layers on, and then you got to like
check 2 bags on Southwest. You don't need to do that.
Yeah, but then you got to wait for them, and it delays you getting to your final destination.
Yeah, by like 7 minutes tops. Like, calm down. Just check a bag for free.
And then you have to wait at the carousel, and there's those annoying people that are at the carousel. They put their foot up on the carousel to like hold their spot if their bag comes down.
You have a lot of weird like anger issues at the airport. I don't understand like the TSA people and just people. I don't understand your problem, but I think just relax and you'll have a good time.
I have a lot of weird tics when it comes to being in an airport, and those are all some of them. But all that to say, I'm a freak. Mark, I guess, is normal, but we're both pumped to go to Destin and Bozeman.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Nashville getting all these cool direct flights is awesome too. I mean, like we're going to keep growing. So I love all these things, and we just got a couple new ones to. I think we're going to have one to Telluride soon, or I guess it's called right by there. Yeah, and we have a couple more to like Florida areas that we've not and Savannah, we just got a new direct flight too, which is
cool. That's sick.
I know. So we have a lot of great places that Nashville's going. We just need more international flights. I want to travel more, and I can't do it if we don't have any direct flights.
I flew to Cuba on Southwest from Atlanta. That was pretty wild.
Yeah, and that's what Atlanta's got all these cool like direct international flights. I think we just have England, London. I think it's like once a month. And I mean, we have like some of the island ones, but
I didn't know that. Yeah, every time I've looked to go international, you have to go to New York before you go international from here, which isn't terrible, but LaGuardia is disgusting. So,
but I figure I'm too old for like, I have enough money and I'm too old to not do direct flights. I hate going to other places because then you're worried like, am I going to be late? Am I going to get my luggage? Like, I like to be there early. So if it's like a 30-minute thing and you have a 15-minute late takeoff, like you're done. And you just stay there for just how long?
I've definitely sprinted through airports before, stopped and grabbed a slice of pizza and kept sprinting. Like I've done that before. I think it's
called stealing if you didn't stop to pay.
No, I paid for it, obviously, but it was not my best look. Like, you know how all these movies are like, oh my God, we met in an airport. No one's going to meet me in the airport because I'm always running to my gate because I'm always late.
I also don't want to talk to you in the airport. People like to talk and like, that's fine, but that's not my thing. I just like to like hang out by myself.
Yes. Hang out by myself, have a little beer, eat a little pizza, get on the flight. Done.
Yeah, airport pizza is not probably my favorite thing to get there, but okay. I mean, I think it's a safe thing, so that's okay.
That's the thing you're going to criticize about me. Everything that I do in the airport is wrong.
You're such good pizza, though. I hate like settling for pizza. That's the only thing I feel like. Unless there's a pizza, then that's cool.
You said I'm a weirdo. You're the biggest weirdo of them all. Okay, well, if you want to comment below and tell us how you do the airport, or just say Taylor's right or Mark's right. I know I'll be right. I don't need the votes.
Or they're both wrong, more likely.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Talk to you later.